Hey folks, and welcome back to the channel for another one of my Project Zomboid guides. Now in this one we're going to be taking a look at the various firearms of Project Zomboid, which ones are worth your time, and going on a bit of a deep dive into their individual stats to compare them against one another. Towards the end of the video I'll touch on a couple of mods that you can choose from if you want some more choice when it comes to firearms. And if you enjoy this video or find it useful, consider dropping it a like. It helps put it in front of more people and seriously helps the channel. You can subscribe to the channel for more Zomboid content if you're looking for more stuff like this. So let's start by dispelling a common myth amongst the Project Zomboid community. Some people you'll talk to will swear that firearms are of no use to you and only serve to draw hordes of zombies to your location. Simply not true. In a single player game it can be difficult to find a situation where you can use a gun effectively, but they do exist, especially with particular types of firearms that we'll get into in just a moment. With multiplayer or co-op settings, firearms become much more prominent and are a fantastic tool to be used if you've got a couple of survivors watching your back. Even the loudest of firearms have their uses, and we're about to get into how and why that is. First off, we're going to get into some sidearms. In vanilla Project Zomboid, that's with no mods, we have a choice of 6 different pistols and revolvers. Now, with sidearms is actually quite a simple choice as far as picking your ideal weapon goes. You've got a choice of 2 sidearms that are relatively quiet and have a reduced radius in which they will draw zombies with less damage, or your much louder options that are going to draw more zombies from further away for the payoff of more damage. They do have a lower magazine capacity, however. For beginner shooters with low skills in firearms, I'd suggest either the M9 pistol or the M36 revolver. Now the M9 is going to hit less often if you haven't picked up 1 or 2 levels in aiming already, so the M36 is the best if you have no skill at all. The M9 has a 15 round magazine capacity and is loaded with 9mm rounds, whereas the M36 carries 5 rounds loaded directly and is chambered in .38 special rounds. You won't need magazines for this one. These 2 sidearms have the lowest sound radius of any firearms in Project Zomboid, with the M9 shot spanning 40 tiles and the M36's shots carrying just 30 tiles. This makes both of them a great choice if you're looking to keep the amount of zombies you're attracting to a minimum. The M1911 is a good choice as your aiming skill increases. Whilst only carrying 7.45 auto rounds in a magazine, it packs a good punch with each shot and at the expense of just 10 more tiles of sound radius compared to the M9. The M625 revolver has the same sound radius and is chambered in 6 rounds of .45 auto and does ever so slightly more damage than the 1911. Now it's up to you which one you choose here, but my personal favourite is the 1911. The Desert Eagle and the Magnum revolver are 2 weapons that, to be honest, I wouldn't recommend even if your aiming skill is high enough to use them effectively. By this point you might as well just use a sidearm with a higher magazine capacity or a lower sound radius and hit more often. These things will draw a lot of attention to you compared to other options available for a negligible amount of damage increase. Now if there's one category of firearm that almost any survivor in Project Zomboid can wield effectively, it's a shotgun. For all of the shotguns in Project Zomboid, you won't require any aiming skill to get some good results. They're just a pick up and use weapon. The downside is that all shotguns you'll find will have the same sound radius generated by each shot, and unfortunately for you, it's the highest in the game at 100 tiles. If you fire a shotgun, prepare for many more zombies to come your way. That said, they're also the best weapon of choice for dealing with these kinds of situations, being able to hit multiple zombies with each shell. They make for great wave clearing devices, especially in multiplayer when you have some friends to watch your back. There's 2 choices for shotguns in the vanilla game, that being the JS2000 with a 6 shell capacity or the double barrel shotgun. You can also take a saw to either of these weapons to create a sawed off version of that gun, with reduced range but lower carrying weight. The best thing about these weapons is their ability to grant the user increased XP gains compared to other firearms. Every zombie you hit grants you XP with a shotgun, and if you keep in mind that each shell can hit multiple targets, it soon becomes clear why they're so good at this. Couple that with their ability to be used by complete beginners to firearms and you're on to a winner. You can gather large amounts of zombies and farm some aiming and reloading skills, providing you have the ammo you'll need to deal with the waves of undead that you're no doubt going to attract in the process. So that brings us to the last category of weapons that you'll find in a vanilla version of Project Zomboid, and that's rifles. There's 4 types of rifle that you'll find in the game as it stands right now: the M14, the M16, the MSR 700, and the MSR 788. Each of these comes with their own benefits and calibers, so let's jump into which ones I'd recommend. First and foremost, all of these rifles have a sound radius of 70 tiles. That leaves us somewhere between shotguns and pistols with these options. And to be honest, if it were my choice, I'd only really recommend the rifles if you can get yourself either the M16 or the M14. Both of these options are semi-automatic, not bolt action, so have a larger magazine capacity and a higher rate of fire. The accuracy of an M16 is only slightly lower than that of the bolt action versions. The M14's accuracy is higher than the bolt actions, and honestly, you might as well just be using a shotgun instead if you're using something this loud instead of a bolt action that's going to leave you fighting waves of zombies with limited fire rate. So that leaves us with the M16 and the M14 to choose from. The M14 packs a bigger punch with its 7.62 caliber against the M16's 5.56 caliber and is generally easier to use than the M16. It's going to require a lot less skill to use effectively. The M14 makes for a good long-range weapon with a decent fire rate and has the highest accuracy out of the two by far. Where the M16 has the DMR beat, however, is an increased fire rate and magazine capacity. If you've got the skill to use the M16, it makes for a fantastic all-purpose option that still does a reasonable amount of damage per shot. It also has double the chance to knock down a zombie when compared against the M14. So the choice is really up to you here, but it'll likely be the M14 unless you have a high enough aiming skill to make use of the M16 effectively. Alright, so with all of the firearms in the vanilla game covered, I think it's time I mention some popular firearms mods that add a selection of weaponry for the avid firearms enthusiasts out there. Now, if you're looking for the largest selection of firearms that the Project Zomboid modding community has to offer, then look no further than Britta's weapon pack. This is a prepper's wet dream, with a frankly ridiculous amount of guns and ammo types to play around with. You can adjust a bunch of settings to tailor the experience, but generally speaking, this mod is perfect if you want to focus more on using guns than melee weapons and crafted alternatives. It can be a bit overwhelming for some, but nonetheless, it's probably the most popular firearms mod of all time in Project Zomboid, and for good reason. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, if you're looking to stick to vanilla firearms but want to increase spawn rates to give you a chance to use them more often, the More Vanilla Firearms mod by Blackbeard is a great choice. Nothing fancy, it just does what it says on the tin. There's a couple of other options if you're looking to expand your arsenal without going too crazy though, and my personal favourite of these is currently the Vanilla Firearms expansion by Stendo Clip. There's a good selection of common weaponry like the MP5, AK-47 and Tech 9 with some new attachments too. This mod adds a total of 9 firearms, at least a couple for each category, so it hits that middle ground really nicely. The other option, if you're looking for something vanilla friendly, is Firearms B41 by Hyzo. This adds a total of 14 new firearms with some pretty unique additions like the M60 and the Uzi carbine. It also brings in silencers, 3D models for attachments like slings and recoil pads, alongside the new weapons that it brings to the table. It's a solid choice for those looking for new additions without going too crazy. So that's it from me in this one. Hopefully you've learned something new about firearms in this video and have all you need to go and try some for yourself. If there's any firearms mods out there that you like to use or tips that you'd give to others for using firearms in Project Zomboid, let me know in the comments. Special thank you to all of my Patreon supporters for believing in what I do and playing on our whitelisted Project Zomboid server. There's a link for that in the description, and thank you folks. I will see you all in the next one.